Does your husband beat you, ladies? Does your man, your male partner, put his hands on you? You know this is wrong, right? No man anywhere has a right to put his hands on his companion in a way that would hurt her physically, to do her any harm, in other words. What would be his purpose? He's angry. Is he trying to get you to do something that you otherwise would not do or not willing to do? Have you asked yourself the question, why is he putting his hands on me? This is a sensitive subject to me. And if you have been a victim of someone who has physically accosted you, I'm sure that you are concerned about this as well. You see, I've said this before and it's redundant, perhaps to some, but it's much necessary to others, and that's simply this. Most of what we do in terms of habits, our behavior, our likes and dislikes, are a direct result of our childhood. Now, concerning this particular subject of physical abuse, that man experienced similar when he was a child. He saw his father or his stepfather beat his mother, put his hands on his mother. He saw his uncle perhaps put his hands on his wife or someone in the family. Even if he was in a foster parent setting, it could have been possible that he saw his foster father put his hands on his wife. But it did come from his childhood. It could have been he was in the house full of sisters and he was the only male, maybe even the oldest male if he had a brother much younger. Or even the flip side of that, he could have been the youngest brother and had a much older brother that he didn't necessarily relate to. And he felt like, I'm an outcast, frustrated, can't really communicate, so I have to sort of express myself, and it was in the form of violence. And oftentimes in the first scenario that I used about the father beating the mother and so forth, this is something that sits in the back of his mind, in his memory, his long-term memory, so that when he gets older, any potential girlfriend or date or even wife, companion, could be a victim of his earlier experiences. But that does not legitimize his actions, does not make it right. Because that is something internally that he has to deal with and learn how to come to terms with and cope with and even get rid of. Oftentimes, more so than not, he has not been taught how to handle his own anger, how to manage his anger, and ultimately be delivered from it. So he goes on in every subsequent relationship, passing that anger on, perpetrating that same situation that or several situations that he experienced in his youth, in his current relationships. But you don't deserve that, ladies. You don't deserve to be the brunt of his anger, no matter what his reasons are. Or, honey, I got upset because I lost my job. Baby, I was upset because this guy, rubbed me the wrong way today at work. I didn't like the way so-and-so talked to me. I didn't make enough money this week to pay the bills. You said something that pushed the button. whatever the plethora or the multitude of excuses he could possibly use, he can never find an adequate enough excuse to excuse him for putting his hands on you. You see, you're the queen. Irrespective of your race, color, creed, origin, background, it doesn't matter. That's the way God intended it to be. You're supposed to be flesh of his flesh. He's not going to beat up on himself. So why should he beat up on his partner, who is part of him? So ladies, you need to ask yourself the real question. Am I in this relationship, this violent, or potential relationship that's violent because of convenience? Because I don't feel that I can do this alone, and I need this man for his economical benefits. In other words, I don't feel like I can stand alone and pay the bills and be independent because I've never been taught to do that. And so I go ahead and take what he dishes out in fear that I could be on the street tomorrow because he's the primary provider. I'm sorry if that's you and you feel that way. But you know what? There's a word, there's a big S word called sacrifice. Sometimes you have to make a sacrifice after you've given it some thought, some deep, heartfelt thought. You have to make a sacrifice for the good. And if that sacrifice leads you to the conclusion that you must leave, then you should do that. Because no one, male or female, deserves to be abused by anyone, especially someone that purports to love them, who claims to love them. You don't deserve it. You're much, much more better than that. And you should think more highly of yourself than that. He has no right to touch you in that way. If he's not loving you, kissing you, caressing you, he shouldn't be touching you in that way. I know I'm ranting on. I know people who have been the victims of domestic violence, male and female. And sometimes you can't say enough. Sometimes you can't say the right things to get them to understand that they must leave or withdraw themselves from that circumstance. Because they don't believe that they can make it by themselves. But whoever you are today listening to me under the sound of my voice, I'm telling you that you can. I believe in you. You must believe in you. If you have any questions, still away. Take some time away from that situation. Send me a question, and I'll try my very best to give you some words of consolation and even some words of encouragement and some words of deliberation, so that you can liberate yourself from that situation and that circumstance. Because there are other people that will love you the way that you should and that you deserve to be loved. Because nobody, and I do mean nobody, no one, deserves that kind of punishment. May Yahweh bless you. I'll see you in the next video. Please leave your questions below, and I will respond. You know I will. This is Brother Teacher. So long.